Welcome back to my channel, everybody. Starting out the new year. Well, I shouldn't say starting out the new year. I already started the new year in Big Bend National Park, but I'm continuing the new year out here at Government Canyon State Natural Area, where it's encouraged that you pick up after yourself and your pets. But for some reason in our society today, well, I would say we don't give a crap, but obviously it seems like some are giving more of a crap than others. Over the last portion of last year and even parts of this year already, I have shared information about having lost a loved one recently. And for some reason, there are at least a couple of clueless people that keep suggesting irrelevant things or commenting inappropriately, or even requesting things that they have no right to request. But at the same time, this is a public channel, and so obviously I'll need to put up with some of the public peanut gallery. The fact is, though, that anytime I share energy with some of these, let's call them commentators, the energy that I share has been, for the most part, polite, respectful, considerate, compassionate, and absolutely positive. And for whatever reason, the person or persons who I'm referring to don't seem to return any kind of positive insight. Definitely no positive energy, and I believe that they are of the mindset that is more apt to kill, steal, or destroy when it comes to the valuation of one another. And so this year, I'd like to do something different, and I'm just going to continue to improve. Improve upon what it is that I can tend to. What can I tend to? Can I pick up everyone's belongings and clean up after everybody? Certainly not. Can any of us? Absolutely not. Can I pick up after myself? Can I pick up others who are feeling a little bit diminished, overlooked? Absolutely. How do I know how to do these things? Well, I've been diminished and overlooked for quite some time. And some of that stuff, I think, I inadvertently allowed by tolerating it. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is being quiet and respectful when appropriate. And in order to accomplish that and to emphasize that lesson, what I'm going to do is block those commentators for this year. Maybe next year we'll re-allow them, but just like with specific members of my close-knit group, I had to block those commentators some time back because they were getting themselves into dangerous territory. Speaking of dangerous territory, the area that I just came from is struggling with their water reserves capacity. Is your area in jeopardy of running out of water? In the county where I reside, we've been running into some extremes. Extreme winters, extreme summers, prolonged time frames without measurable rainfall, and all these things are causing great distress on the habitat and the wildlife. Today my goal is to complete 10 kilometers of distance. Do you know how far that is in terms of miles? Time's up. It's about 6.2 miles. And in case you aren't able to tell, I'm sweating out a considerable amount of water. I'm definitely not a trainer. I don't have any kind of I definitely don't have a doctor's degree.
Lap 1, 29:26. Average pace 29:27.
I've just completed my first mile out of the 6, but that's a side note. Anyway, I still have found relevant information to this journey that we're on that some people are possibly benefiting from. The ones who want to interrupt that message, well, like I said, you'll find yourself not even in the peanut gallery. I wonder if the same is true when it comes to overall spirituality and the alleged groups that we would find ourselves in after the fact. Have you ever heard that U2 song, It's a Beautiful Day? In there's a line, what you don't have, you don't need it now. Maybe the people who were walking these domesticated animals didn't have any poop bags. Maybe the environment might be so stressed that some of that poop might actually go to use in a place like this. In Big Bend National Park, where I came from, we've seen instances where the bears will eat one another's scat because the food reserves have been running so low. Right now, for the visitors, the people who are visiting Big Bend National Park, even the hotel reservations are on hold because they're running out of water. The pump failed, and even though the pump failed, the fact is they've been running out of water for years, and still the building, the construction continues onwards, like as if that's not going to matter. We just keep building it. It's like that movie. If we build it, people are going to be satisfied. But will we be able to sustain ourselves? Will we even be positive stewards of those environments with all of that destruction if we're not even noticing the die-off around us? Now, I've only gone a mile, but so far this morning, I haven't heard pretty much hardly any animals. I've investigated areas that in the past you didn't even have to really try to investigate, both on and just off trail, to at least hear the birds, see the rabbits, watch a deer, and stir up any other kind of animal, even some of the nocturnal ones, on a beautiful overcast day like today. The humidity level is up there because a front is coming through, and the chances of rain significantly increase in about 1.5 hours from now. Check out this gigantic tree behind me. It's in the wash. It's really hard to have a sense of perspective or scale in some cases when you're only seeing these things on a video, especially if you're watching it on your smart device in your hand, especially if you're holding the smart device in portrait mode instead of landscape mode as this video has been filmed. I film my content primarily in landscape mode because I find that the best way to view this type of content is generally on a large screen, computer monitor, television, something like that. And for the people who use YouTube, if you weren't aware, many of your smart TVs have the ability to sign into YouTube. I would encourage you to consider watching those videos on a widescreen, and if you like wildlife and nature, do a search for a content creator called Desert Drifter. Now, the content creator has passed away. However, before they passed away, they captured so many amazing segments, especially in the American Southwest, on native structures and things that they would find in canyons. Here in Government Canyon, I've definitely found evidence of native cultures, and just like in Big Bend, as the vegetation dies off, more and more content is being exposed. And as this is occurring, I am seeing more and more evidence of what was considered important for survival. So for those who are armchair quarterbacking it and just lobbing up irrelevant and irreverent comments, that doesn't take very much strength, and it certainly shows a weakness of mind and character. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned that we are in a new year. It's 2026, and the Government Canyon area used to be open on specific days during the week, but guess what? It's now open 7 days a week. The exclusions being wildlife management days. What that means is whenever there's a hunt or a cull or anything of that nature, wildlife management situation, then the place closes down. But in the meantime, 7 days a week, you can get pretty close to seeing just how close to civilization we are. I think you can see the power lines and hear that bird chirping. And then you can also recognize some of the wildlife. A lot of it is now basing itself right outside or on the fringes of this type of terrain. Why is that? So I just saw a domestic dog that I recorded a little bit of it to show you. Mostly I spent the time trying to assure it that I wasn't a threat. It's right on the fringe of a neighborhood. Clearly the dog has either been lost or neglected. Here's a subdivision you can see right in front of me. I think you can see those houses. And I started the video saying that I'd lost a close friend, relative, and that was my dog, 14 years. And we miss him greatly. And we know how genuinely compassionate animals and humans can be. And honestly, my preference, especially when it comes to, I'm going off trail a little bit, it's not encouraged, but I want to show you. I think you could see that it was a towel. In these areas where there's nonstop construction, or I should say destruction, look at this. We've slowly begun to awaken to the fact that maybe the resources are not as unlimited, regionally at least, in ways that we have attempted to accomplish. Maybe we need to start taking care of the places that we've established rather than just building more. Maybe instead of demolishing things, we need to find new ways to reinforce, patch up, strengthen what it is we have going on. So they say there's a lot of birds on this telephone line or power lines. By a lot, what I mean is there aren't as many as there used to be, and if you noticed, they were all just sitting still. Why are they just sitting still? Why was that dog so lost? Why does it sound like my topics are ambling in directions that we can't quite pinpoint? This is why. It feels more and more like we're all living in a garbage dump, a disposal area. Maybe that's what Earth is. Maybe we've come here to find ourselves exactly as we are, the pieces of garbage that we are. Maybe that came out a little harsh. My father says that I say things harshly. In a way, I kind of laugh because he originally treated me more than harshly.
Ray, you look, did I? No, I did. No, sir.
In my
You're
baseball
wrong.
uniform.
You're wrong. You're wrong, Ray. I never said that. That must have been one of your dreams or
You're
something.
hurting my feelings.
I'm not hurting your feelings. I'm just telling you.
And in fact, we still are unable to have discussions about these pain points that still exist. I don't actively try to bring them up until judgment against me with misinformation is used. Many men in my life have continued to judge me with misinformation, with ill logic. And I've even reflected these sentiments to my mother, who can't really do much in this hierarchical world where a man's fragile ego.
Lap 2, 2205.
We're at 2
Average
miles right
pace
now, by the way.
2546.
Is more important than the life itself that our nurturing mothers used to prioritize. On this channel, I've talked about dreams, reality, synchronicity. This morning, I wrote down my dreams. If you don't journal your dreams, there was something scurrying in the underbrush there. If you don't journal your dreams, it's something worth considering, especially if you're in the older demographic, because it's been proven to improve your cognition. In fact, if you don't remember your dreams regularly, just the fact that you get a journal and make it a focus at the beginning of your day, rather than, the continental breakfasts and the news. Doesn't that sound like noose? The noose. If you focus on things that are more important, like self-care, you start finding interesting things. I can't say that I'm able to predict the future, but in today's dream in my journal, one of the 3 things I wrote down was I encountered an unfamiliar dog, a large dog, much like the one I saw. In my dream, it was almost all black. But in my dream, it was also late afternoon, evening in my dream. And either way, that dog looked very similar to what I dreamed about. So there are a lot of things I dream about where I feel like maybe there are parallel existences, even if they're only in our own individual heads. And maybe in those existences, maybe we do continue on to our groups, and maybe we've already continued on. Maybe the future has already happened, and we're just at this frame in time experiencing it, because some of us are refusing to shift to our higher dimensions. No telling. There's a lot of hypothetical, near mysticism that I'm referencing. And if you're really into reading, if you reread some of those books of peace, here in this nation, the Bible is the main book of peace. If you reread them, you get to hear accounts that almost sound supernatural, mystic, and as if the future has already been conducted. In the Bible, it said that the Creator already knows us from the womb, knew us exactly as we were formed. Before we thought it, they knew our thoughts. And if all of this is accurate, and if free will is the only opportunity that we are to express, and if the concept is to help one another, then I want to do my best. And to do that, I hope that some of you will participate in meaningful ways that help to encourage the sharing of positivity. Just because you see me observe something and point it out doesn't mean I'm being negative about it. Just because my voice sounds maybe challenged, passionate, stressed, I don't know what it sounds like to you. Just because you're perceiving something some way doesn't mean that's what it is. So for some of us who see the words Holy Bible, maybe a crucifix, hopefully we're not judging the book by its cover, And hopefully we're still considering that there are bits of knowledge that our ancestors have left for us. And with that account, if we think about it, the natives who were in this nation before it was infiltrated by settlers or whoever, they had instructions, manuals, stories, and they tended to these resources in ways that were not devastating and not wasteful. But in our case, in our nation, everything is sold to us. And it's sold in packaging that becomes a very complex part of the equation. And the equation sometimes results in a negative value. Those negative values are the energies that sustain us. So if you're hearing things more negatively than you thought that you wanted to, and if you're being more negative than you expected, maybe it has to do with the content that you're consuming. And again, that's why I try to share encouraging content that shows ways to accomplish something. So what have I accomplished so far? Well, my health has been regained. I've restored my ability to sleep soundly through the night. And now that I'm getting restorative sleep, I'm making bountiful progress with each effort that I've taken on. Don't get me wrong, I can absolutely relate. You're probably thinking, but Ray, what can I do except for my individual part? That's what most people say. Well, all we can do is our individual part. What is our individual part? Do we reference those old manuals about how to heal? Or do we just take ourselves and our loved ones to doctors for pills and solutions that are not as much preventative as they are reactive? I've had plenty of friends and family members go for help when it came to weight loss, and a number of other ailments. And I've done the same thing for my unusually high blood pressure. I was on medication for some time. It was covered. I've got a wonderful coverage plan. But that doesn't mean that I need to suck up those resources, especially if I haven't tried to suck it up and offset the situation at hand in any way. Pills are supposed to be kind of a temporary solution. Medication is a temporary solution. It's not meant for us to be on medication for our whole lives. However, most of the segments that I would formerly hang out with regularly, including the people who said, "Oh, you're so harsh," are segments that absolutely subscribe to long-term illness. They don't subscribe to long-term care. It's a long-term subscription to continued ailing and shortening of our dreams or our very real lives that we have to enjoy. We don't have to enjoy. We have them to enjoy. But for many people, it's going to turn more and more into a hellish scenario as the noose tightens, Did you hear that banging noise at the same time? There's construction going on to my right. In a while, you might be able to tell who's doing the construction, who's doing the manual labor. And you might even question yourself, like I do often, do I even deserve the dwelling that I'm in? I didn't help build it, but I did help build something. I helped build towards this infrastructure itself that I have been participating in. I was introduced to this system at birth, as have we all. But not all of us have been introduced to the system in as allegedly well off a nation as I have been introduced to. For that, I am both grateful and painfully aware of, in a way that almost resonates a slight shame. So many people are asking themselves, again, Ray, what can I do? Not only do I not get out to those places, but I see you passing by that rubbish, not picking it up. Sometimes I do. Oftentimes, I can't keep up. I can't keep up because it'd be literally like me against the world. And so the only thing I can do is tend to what is absolutely in my calling. Yeah, and so sometimes I'll watch someone like Desert Drifter who's sharing knowledge very similar to mine, except for his placement, demeanor, look, everything was way more successful when it came to showcasing his craft. And in that presentation, he shared a lot of insights that stick with people. So what can you do? Same thing I'm doing. When I watch Desert Drifter, I enjoy his content very much because I enjoy it, and I know there are other people out there like ourselves who are watching nature content. I love to reference that show, and so other people.
Lap 3,
We're
1942.
at 3 miles
Average
now, by the
pace
way. So other people can learn
23:45.
about these things, these issues, these locations. I thought we found an artifact. Believe it or not, there are many artifacts here, sometimes immediately on the trail. And anyway, in that same way, if you enjoy what you're seeing, if you understand what I'm talking about, at least click on the like button. If you feel like this is relevant to your circles, share something like this to your group. Right now, my subscription number is just under a threshold that's necessary in order to become a monetized channel. And I do this stuff very frequently. Right now, it's basically for free. They say that if you really want to get paid well, you give away your work. I would do this every day, especially if I had the incentivization to make it happen. Now, I also enjoy music. So if you want me to play a song, learn to play a song that you want me to play, then I'd consider it. But for right now, what I've mostly considered is that I need to put in some physical activity in addition to eventually offsetting my sometimes overwhelming expenses. And to do that, well, I've got to make the most of my time. And to make the most of my time, I can't slow down and continue to tend to those who continue to use ill logic. So I've gone 3.14 miles. That's just over 5K. What's 5K? 5K is 3.107 miles. For any of you who are curious about it. Just watch the tiniest moth fly by. Remember how I was saying, if you're not here, you can't always get the perspective. Well, a while ago, about 6 cardinals, 2 males, 4 females, were in the bush right in front of me. And so I came to a stop, kind of like this. And as soon as I stopped, about 6 more birds, doves, on the left flew, as I guess they thought I was stopping to mess with them. When they flew, it spooked the cardinals, so you didn't get to see the cardinals. But check this out. This is different. Earlier, I already had one of those gas-powered all-terrain vehicles pass by me and filled with park personnel. Now there's a truck patrolling the area, and that's typically how it is when I come into these areas. If it's not an inundation of people being crude, then I see a lot of hear a lot of motorized vehicles at this place. So that's why I prefer going to a place like Big Bend. However, if you've watched a lot of my clips, you'll see even an area like that it's practically the same as any other commercial enterprise, where it's got ongoing construction and people tend to do their work in vehicles. The rangers at the campgrounds, for an example, used to walk to each campsite. They were quiet enough as they walked so that you could hear things going on around you. The animals weren't scared off. But then, as time went by, we got to a point where people just drive around from campsite to campsite, never turning off their vehicle. And quite frequently, a lot of these vehicles have actuators tied into the alarm system so that anytime people lock and unlock their doors, even the rangers and park personnel, the vehicles are just constantly honking. I don't understand who's in charge of these things, but I can assure you it doesn't seem like it's someone who wants to be a steward of these ecosystems. The campsite I was at in Big Bend last, it's supposed to be a dark skies area, and yet the housing for the park personnel that's right there on the hill has the brightest porch lights on and patio lights on that obliterate those dark skies. What's up with that? Right now my heart rate's in zone 3. I've been running the stretches that are kind of downhill, like the one I'm on right now, and I've also been hitting zone 4 though, and so I'm kind of mixing it up a little bit, but I'm almost at 4 miles, and so I'm still going to come in with plenty of juice. But one of the things that's impressively beneficial when it comes to training for running or any endurance sport is trying to keep your heart rate down. So I vary it up to try and get my heart rate to dip down just enough, maybe zone 2, and then I'll just resume my pace and go from there. And I'll keep doing that until the day that I can run the whole thing without my heart rate going into an unusual extreme. Just so you know how restorative some of these places are. I spent about 21 days at Big Bend starting last year, and I lost over 20 pounds. I'll show you the stats on the screen probably right now. Four miles. So I was only at 4.6 miles, so I'm gonna not head to the parking lots. I'm gonna go to about 5.2 miles and then turn back around and from there head back to the parking lots, just so I can get quite a bit closer to my intended 6.2 miles of total distance without having to be too close to the parking lot where I might unintentionally run into more people. Also, earlier I was talking about going to Big Bend for about 3 weeks and how I lost over 20 pounds. That has made it significantly easier to cover ground. I mean, try it out for yourself. Add 20 pounds to your backpack and get out there for an extended distance. Think about that. For all of us that are carrying excess weight, think about how difficult it might be to navigate this terrain. If you've never done something like this, think about the stress that it could take on your joints, on your knees, ankles, hips. Think about all the mobility situations. And then If you're my family, think about all those times I invited you out here to do these things so that you can improve and strengthen your body, and how much easier it would have been to do it this way than to go through those unnecessary injuries. And in a way, as I'm saying that, I'm saying it to motivate myself to continue to put in the effort so that I don't end up broken and sitting at home with the news tightening around me with all of that illogic and irrelevant and sometimes irreverent content.
Lap 5.
So we've hit 5 miles right when another one of the park personnel ATVs passed by. The most horrible smell. The exhaust on that thing was really terrible. Oh God, it still smells. Again, the experiences that some of us have in some of the areas where we were brought up might seem extremely luxurious and pristine and amazing. God, it smells pretty bad. And even though this is an amazing experience, it's absolutely been tainted. That was a lot of noise, and there's a lot of pollution. And whoever's doing this patrolling, they used to do it differently in ways that made more sense. All right, I just hit 6 miles, headed back to the parking lot. I just passed my first pedestrian hiker. They had a dog with the most amazing blue eyes. Beautiful dog. And very kind owner who wished me a great day on the trails. Not everyone's even able to greet one another anymore. I'm telling you, it's different times out there. Oh, that was something else. Whew. So it took me about 2 hours to do that, to complete that distance at a varied pace with heart rate intervals that went up to zone 5 for me on this particular run. I haven't hit zone 5 in a while, but I wanted to use the last straightaway to do that. Yeah, I'll say it was pretty successful, and I'll let you know a few more stats right after this.